Hello and welcome to another edition of Design for the Times. I'm your host, Richard Scuderi, and today is our real estate show. We're going to talk all about spring market in New Jersey and what's going on, what's around, what's happening, and we're also going to talk about the design element of having a house staged and the best things to do. To my left, I have two wonderful real estate professionals. First, to my left, I have John Leahy, and he's with Weichert Realtors in Oldwick, New Jersey. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
And then also a lovely guest and a personal friend of mine who's also with Weichert but in the Flemington office, and her name is Dottie Polak. Welcome.
Thank you, Rich.
Terrific. Thank you guys for being here. So I want to talk to you both about the spring market. It's often said that spring market is the beginning of the new year and the season. So my question to both of you is, when does spring market really begin?
I'd say February, March.
Okay.
It depends on the weather. In the
Sure.
last couple of winters, we've had fairly warm winters, and
Right.
it started earlier.
Well, let me ask you a question. This was sort of a strange year because February was unseasonably mild. I mean, there were days it was 60 degrees. In that case, did people start looking already early this year, even though March is terribly snowy?
Yes, I did have. I've been busy all along, but yes, I do have clients out looking.
Sure. And then, John, would you find that this year for the winter, there's been more activity this year?
Oh, definitely more activity this year, and it's really picked up after Super Bowl weekend. We've seen a big increase in the amount of attendees at our open houses, but it will definitely continue to increase as the weather gets warmer. And after the holidays, the Easter Passover holidays.
Sure. And talking about timing with real estate, it's always been said to me that people often move at certain times based upon the school year. Now, not everybody has children, but do you think there are sort of peak times that people want to move by? I was often told that the summer months are a good time to actually close and move because the children will start school in September.
That's correct.
Is there cycles with this thing with real estate and when people move, or?
There is. I've noticed people with children that are school age definitely
Sure.
prefer to move in the summertime.
Right. And John?
Yeah, definitely in the summertime because they have more time to get settled, get their children acclimated to the area, and to start school.
Now, when somebody lists their house, do they often take it off for the Christmas season or certain times of the year because of family events and things that are going on?
Sometimes I do see that.
So you'll have a specific listing, and then the holidays will come, and you'll just take it off, and then do you put it on as a fresh listing then? How does that work?
Yes. Or
Okay.
sometimes they'll wait for the winter months to be over. They don't want the wet season tracking through
People
the house.
tracking
that
mud
type of
and
thing.
things
Right.
into
Yes.
the season.
Yes.
Yeah, they'll withdraw the listing,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll reactivate it come February.
From February. So interesting to know. So our show is actually a design show, as you both know. And one of the things that I wanted to cover today, which seems to be becoming significantly more popular with mainstream, is staging your house. Staging has become a thing. I believe even in Weichert, there's people that have official staging sort of licenses. I think you and I discussed that, Dottie, right? What was that about?
There are agents, anybody's able to take a staging course
Sure.
and become certified in that.
Do some of the realtors themselves take staging
Yes.
courses?
Yes.
And to show the best bet. Here's my thing on staging. I've been doing this for about 21 years now, and in the beginning, really no one staged, and people were able, I think back in the day, because they wanted to come out to this part of New Jersey, it was so desirable. People were willing to buy houses that were run down. People were willing to buy fixer-uppers, and people wanted to do that because they wanted to create their own stamp. Now, I think probably collectively we'd all want to put our own stamp on something, don't you think?
Yes.
Because I think we see a lot. We're in people's houses. I'm in people's houses all the time, and you guys are as well. But then something changed, and I don't know really what it was that changed, but something happened where people's expectation of resales changed, and they wanted them to look like models. I would say starting in the early 90s, people would go to decorator models. Some of these big builders like Toll Brothers and so on would do these wonderful decorated models. And I think that's where it started, where people were getting an expectation of what a house could look like. And there were those props with that glass of wine that was actually, not wine at all, and things of that nature. And I think that started the process that when people looked at new houses that were basically just boxes. What is a house basically? It's boxes, it's small rooms. Or maybe large rooms, but they're empty rooms. Staging started to become the thing, and people would go to the models to try to copy the model and so on. But then resale houses didn't sort of catch up until probably around 2005. And then I think people started realizing if they wanted to get top dollar for their house, they needed to do some staging. So I'm curious, both of you, what your take on staging is and the importance of staging. John?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with television, HGTV, people
Sure.
watching home decorating shows
On TV.
On TV,
Mhm.
and then they go out to look for a home, and they're looking for that same materials, layout, colors, things like that. So it's
Sure.
gotten to be very important. So people, when they go into a home, they want to be able to picture themselves living in that home.
Sure.
So that's why it's very important that the house is staged, that it's depersonalized,
Sure.
and so the potential buyer can feel comfortable in the home and hopefully make an offer.
Now, what about you, Dottie? What's your perception of the importance of staging, and when did it start to sort of take off in your expectation?
I see homes selling quicker when they are staged.
Sure.
It gives a person a sense of where furniture could be laid out. A lot of times with this open concept,
Sure.
it's where do I put the TV? Where do I put
It's hard
the
to
couch?
define. You know, it's funny that you say that because there was a period of time, and I don't know if you remember this or not, there was a period of time that builders used to take the corners of a property, of a house, the corners, and they rounded them because it was like considered a really
Yes.
nice finished edge. But that didn't last very long.
No,
Do
it
you want to
didn't.
know why? You know why.
I know why.
I know why.
Because, all right, tell me if you know. I'm a decorator, you guys are a realtor. Tell me why that didn't last.
Because you don't know where to end the paint.
Exactly.
It's very difficult to paint and have that direct.
So that had a very
space
short
on.
shelf
Yes,
life,
sure
although it was
did.
very lucrative for me because I was doing paint color consultations for a long time. So that holds true with the new floor plans. It is a challenge for people, and often people will bring me into new construction homes because they don't know how to set them up. They don't know how to delineate and make this the living room, this the dining room, this the family room. So there are some complications to that. On the flip side, when you're looking at resale homes, often older homes have smaller rooms. People lived differently. So we want to maximize what the space looks like and really do something with it to make it its best. So do you think that homeowners are willing to spend dollars on staging? I'll start with you, Dottie.
It isn't. It's not a. It is expensive.
Sure.
It's expensive to do staging. Do they want to? I think they would love to.
Sure.
Price is an issue.
Is an issue. Do you find now when people come to you and they say, okay, I want you to come for a listing appointment, do you find that often people have an overinflated value of their home? How do you tell somebody your house is not worth what you think it's
Well,
worth?
you got to show.
While
show
you're
them-
in their house.
Yeah, you got to
Right.
show them what it is that recently sold to show them what you want. Well, if this one sold for 200,000
comps.
more
Right.
Right.
than yours, and look at this house, you
Right.
know. Yeah, the comps.
Now, how do you do it, John? How do you say in a tactful way, like that's like saying, oh, well, your baby, is not the best. How is it to say that someone's home, which is so personal? I think what we all do, because we're in people's homes, it's very personal, so you have to be very tactful in how do you do things. How do you tell somebody, well, your house is not worth 400,000, it's worth 295?
Well, we explain to them the importance of pricing their home correctly.
Sure.
Because if a house is overpriced, what happens then is it sits on the market, and then the listing becomes stale.
Right.
And then it takes a much longer time to sell, and generally will sell for less money.
Right.
So it's important that a house is priced correctly.
Sure.
So what we do is we're able to provide the sellers with the comps of the area,
Right.
show them what has recently sold, show them pictures of what's recently sold, and then explain to them how how we came up with our pricing, and then what they could do to increase the value in their home and therefore increase the price.
So ergo, staging.
Staging.
Maximizing the revenue, taking whatever sort of property it is and just making it to be the best that it
That's
can
right.
be. So I want to start with projects, things that we can do. I think, to me, this is how I see people buying real estate. It doesn't start anymore where it used to start. It starts, of course, on the computer. I think people go onto the computer. They go on Realtor.com is a popular site. What other sites are there? Garden State?
Weichert.com.
There's Weichert.
Weichert.com.
Okay. Figures. Okay, Weichert.com. There's Realtor.com. What are some of the other sites that people can go to?
Well, they
just for
really
houses?
they really all work together.
Sure.
So
They're the same database.
Right. So once
Yes.
once a realtor puts the home onto the multiple listing,
Right.
it's automatically fed to all those sites. So they're not
Sure.
going to see different listings
Okay.
on Realtor.com versus
So let's say we go to
Weichert.com.
Weichert.com, and we go on and we look, we say, okay, we want to live in Princeton, New Jersey. And we look at a price range from, I don't know, $800,000 to $2 million. And they look at all the homes. My estimation is it starts right there. So that means your home has to look terrific in pictures. And to me, that's staging. It's knowing what you're doing. It's also how it's photographed and how homes photograph. Do you find it difficult? See, I think it's a big skill set, and I'll start with John on this. It's a big skill set to photograph a room. In most cases, what is a room? A room is a box. It's a rectangle with sheetrock. And photographing it, getting the right angles are very important because that's the difference between a house that they're going to set an appointment with and one that they're going to bypass. So for you in photographing a home, tell me some of maybe things that you found that work well, or maybe some ideas about how it's shot or what they should do to get the best pictures.
Well, what I recommend to the seller, first thing is to declutter, depersonalize the home.
Sure.
Sometimes take some furniture out of the room, make the room look spacious.
Sure.
Paint color is very important, not to have white walls so it all fades away.
Sure.
Do a
Depth
fresh,
perception.
right, do a fresh coat of paint, have your trim painted white, and it just makes the room look very crisp and fresh, and that's what you want.
Sure. Dottie, your some perceptions just from the angle of photographing a space.
I agree with John regarding making the room look more spacious, clear
Sure.
off countertops,
Right.
open up windows, heavy draperies, take them down. You would rather just blinds or
Right.
shades up or something like that. And put away cleaning products in the bathroom, that type of
Sure.
a thing. But keeping things spacious, clean, fresh,
Sure.
fresh smelling, fresh looking.
Also, lighting. I think
Lighting.
lighting is very important when you
Yes.
shoot something. I was told to somebody, and I said, you know what, this is actually true. I always say things aren't white or black; they're somewhat in the middle. But a realtor told me once, 100% of people don't want a dark house.
That's correct.
I guess unless you're a bat.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no one wants a dark house. So we want to make sure that when we photograph a space, it's light. And the same thing holds true when you stage a house. Just as you said, Dottie, we don't want heavy window treatments. We want the windows open. We want the windows washed. We want a lot of natural light.
Yes.
coming in.
Definitely.
So I would say, in my estimation, the beginning of purchasing a home starts on the internet. Some will go to Weichert.com or Realtor.com or so on. They'll look at houses between a price range that they feel that they can afford. The next thing that I think they do, and maybe you disagree with me on this, I don't think they go to you with appointments right away. I think a lot of them do drive-bys. I've seen it in my own neighborhood many times where people are just cruising around on a Sunday. The kids are in the back of the car. It's not somebody that's suspect. What they're doing is they're casing houses. Because when they get to the both of you, they don't want to look at 8 homes. They want to look at the 4 homes they're interested in. So when people are casing homes, what's the most important thing? Curb appeal on the outside. So I want to talk now about the important things that you can do to get your house on that list till they go to say. I would say one of the things that we've just talked about is clean windows. Clean windows are the key. They make a house look bright on the outside and the inside. Also, sometimes there's a perception if the windows are dirty, particularly now after the winter, they think that the windows are bad, that there's broken seals. And that may be off the list because if a house has a tremendous amount of windows, forget it.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
Well, one secret I recommend to my sellers is to remove screens from the windows.
Oh, that's a good one. I agree.
because they also make the windows look dark
and older, right?
and older.
Yeah.
But curb appeal is very important. That's why before you put your house on the market, make sure landscaping is cleaned up and
Sure.
trimmed, fresh flowers,
Right.
maybe a fresh coat of paint or a pop of color at the front door,
Right.
and that will make people stop and look and want to see more.
What about you, Dottie? Anything that when you drive up to a house, when you're going to want a listing appointment, you're like, oof, we got to change this outside right away.
Like John said about the front door, that's the first thing that you're looking at is the
Sure.
front door. Either
You-
paint the door, fluff the mulch up, get the leaves out of the dead
Mulch
leaves
is
out.
key.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to do flowers right now, though,
Right.
because of the circumstances. But certainly, keeping shrubs low is very important, especially now that there's a lot of branches and things, and they can't remove them right away.
Yeah.
I would say the things that I noticed most about appointments that I go on, what people sometimes ask me to stage, is a clear path to the front door. An obscured path is something that's often considered unappealing. The driveway, the driveway is in very good shape. It looks clean. There's no obstructions. There's no big potholes. I also heard a little secret: when the weather is warmer, before you have a showing, take your hose to the driveway if it's an older driveway and you haven't seal coated it, and it gives it a soft, kind of fresh look. Removing screens, which John said is an important thing. Get the windows professionally cleaned. That's very, very important. And also at the front door, we're going to talk about some paint colors in a minute, but things like putting something wonderful pots out on the front. I think, Dottie, you and I talked about maybe a cheerful doormat, something that's very welcoming, and then maybe a beautiful paint color. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the way houses are painted has changed recently, I think, significantly. Of course, the grays are in very big. Lots of grays, often even very dark grays. But what you're seeing are gray houses with darker gray or black shutters and just a pop at the front door. And nothing makes the space look fresher than new paint. So some of the pop colors are kind of bright right now, and I don't know if you've seen that out there where people paint their house like a charcoal gray or dark gray, and then they're using pop colors. And some of the pop colors that are very popular right now is that sort of Tiffany box blue, that blue-green color. Orange is a popular pop color. We're seeing orange again all over the place. Yellow, a gray house with a yellow front door. Yeah. Are you seeing that out there, that the change in the look of the way people paint houses?
I am.
I'm seeing people just getting out of sort of the beiges and tans and more into the grays as the sort of new neutral.
Yeah, I passed a house coming down here this afternoon. It was a gray house, and it had a very distinct, bright blue front door.
Sure.
And it really stood out. So people are using, blues, apple green is a very popular color, things like that, to kind of really set themselves apart from their neighbors.
Exactly. And you know what that does? I always say that paint is a great amalgamator. In fact, it brings all things together. So when you cover something with paint or you put a fresh coat of paint on something, it actually takes on its own identity. An old house can look like a new house because it has modern paint colors, right? So if you have a colonial house that's 5 years old or 35 years old, if it has fresh modern colors, it gives people that's a new house or a newer house.
Right.
And that's sort of a trick. Anything else you can think of for outside? Trimming the branches. When
Clean
the weather,
the gutters.
when the weather
Weeds.
when the weather gets better, power washing does so much. I find that most people these days are so busy, they don't look at the front of their house. They go in.
They go right into the garage.
They go in right into the garage. One time I was having a party, and about 15 minutes before I went to look out front, I was like, oh my God. You don't realize, because people live in the backs of their houses for the most part. So what I do when I have a staging appointment is I take people, I say, come for a walk with me. I take them to the curb, or if there's a cul-de-sac, I take them to the cul-de-sac, and I said, turn around. What do you say? And we make a list of the stuff. And often they're very surprised in their own houses of what they say. That's why I think it's always good to have a pair of fresh eyes. So let's transition to the inside of the house. And I want to start, when you first come into a house, what do you notice, Dottie?
The paint color.
The inside paint color.
The inside paint color, I notice, you can notice if there's any odors.
Sure.
Furniture.
Right.
Clutterness.
Yeah. How about you, John? Coming to a house listing, what do you look for? What do you notice off the bat?
Just the overall cleanliness.
Cleanliness is important.
Odor is very important.
Sure.
Making sure that the house smells clean and fresh.
Right.
And that the house is clean. It's very important and welcoming.
Sure. A couple of things I do when I stage, and I don't know, you can add in on this, is I make people, after we do the curb appeal, we go inside, and I make people walk through each room. I said, take me, I've never been here before, through each room, and I make them walk all the way around the room. If there's something that impedes your walking, you're in trouble. You should make sure, even if you don't have a house that's open, when people go from room to room, there's a clear path. So that means no decorations on the floor. A lot of people put things on the floor, big things, decorative things, everything off the floor, and that you can pass from room to room easily. So that's something that doesn't cost any money, and it's very easy to do.
Yes, it's important, because when people are coming to look at your home, you want to make sure that they're not distracted by stuff.
But also, you want to make them feel that it's spacious. So if they're stretching to get to their next house, you don't want to feel that it's not that big.
Right.
One of the tricks that we often do, or I often do, is ask people to get a short-term storage unit. And even things like closets, your master bedroom closet, take half the clothes out, take half the shoes out, stage those areas, make them look as spacious as they
Right, because
possibly
people
can.
don't realize that potential buyers are going to go through their closets and
Right.
go through their cupboards.
And so paint colors, I think, are very important. The first thing that I look for is consistency of color. Some people make the mistake of letting their children choose their paint colors, which is great while you're living there, but I've been in instances where we have popsicles upstairs, and that is a purple room next to an orange room and so on. I'm going to say things about paint colors that probably realtors might disagree with. I don't like white walls, because white walls don't photograph well. In fact, I don't like white houses anymore on the outside because it doesn't let you have a depth of color. I remember I was in Mendham and I was painting a house that was white with black shutters, and it was a pretty house, but I decided to get the homeowners to go to a light gray, and adding that extra element made all that beautiful trim on that Federal Colonial stand out. The same thing holds true for insides. And paint colors inside houses are getting lighter and lighter.
Yes.
Remember all the saturated colors, the burgundies, the golds, the greens, they were so in. It's the exact opposite right now. The colors are now cool. The colors of paints are neutrals, mostly grays, and then a pop of color in the decorating. Right. So it's really changed a lot. Now, I'm not saying you have to change every color in your house, but if the color from room to room is disruptive, people are turned off.
Yeah.
It should be a coordinated color.
Exactly.
And bringing the same color from room to room makes the rooms look bigger.
Sure. Little trick, if your house is too big, there's something called color blocking. I worked on a project at J&J where they had a space that was tremendous, and I brought it down and made it more approachable by doing different rooms in different colors. That draws your eye in closer. The same thing holds true with smaller houses. When you have a consistent neutral color throughout, it makes the eye carries. The same thing holds true for floors. Have you been in houses, Dottie, where every floor is different?
Yes.
What does that do? That makes the space
It makes it look smaller.
It compartmentalizes it.
Yes.
So if people have the budget, I often say extend the floor that you have.
I get comments from people saying, buyers saying, oh, look at this. Why is this wood a different color than that wood? Why don't they carry it?
Sure. And the best way to handle that is you go with the wood that is indigenous to the house from the beginning. You can always add unstained wood of the same type and then stain it in place to match. And that's the best way to do it.
Yep.
You know, often people ask me, what do I think of the tile that looks like wood? And I answer it this way. I think it's very pretty, but if you have a house that has wood, you don't want to do tile that looks like wood because there's a disconnect there.
Right.
In those cases, then you want to work with the existing wood. And I also think people are much more open to having more wood in their house than they were before. When I first started in the design business, people may have had wood on the first floor. Not many, but people may have had wood on the first floor if it was an older house, but they certainly didn't have it in their kitchens and their powder rooms. Now I see mostly through, especially newer homes, through the whole first floor, including the powder room and the kitchen, that it's hardwood. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree.
Yeah, and the builders do that because they want to make the homes look bigger than they really are.
Yeah.
So what they do is they keep, the secret is keep all the flooring the same.
Consistent, and then the paint color consistent.
Right.
People prefer that, though, too.
I think so. Also for photographing a house, if the walls are all the same color and then there's a pop in every room, it looks really beautiful. You pick up that pop. I'm in this month's Design New Jersey magazine, the February-March issue, and our pop color was orange. So I made sure there were 3 elements in every room because we had all neutral grays with a crisp white trim and then a pop of orange. And on film, that really stands out and looks nice, because what do you want to do as realtors? You want to make your properties, the ones that you're going to show, you want to make them be the one that they're going to pick.
Right.
So the process continues. People go to the internet, they see 8 houses they like, they do the drive-by, they take 4 of the 8, and then they call either Dottie or John, hopefully both of you, and they say, I want to see 4 houses. So my job as a stager or as a designer is to go in and make that as attractive and to as many buyers as possible. And neutral colors do that. I like a nice neutral, a taupe, a grayish, or a gray for the most part. And then I like my trim to be very white. One of the things I did about 4 years ago, as the colors got lighter and more neutral, I realized I need my trim to be brighter because there's less of a contrast.
Right.
So I love Benjamin Moore's Super White, and I use that very often. I use Super White semi-gloss as a trim paint and doors, and then for a ceiling paint, I do the flat version of that white, and it really brightens up a space and it makes it crisper. So something for our audience to think about is changing out their trim color. I often say to people too, if they don't have the budget to paint the whole house, just paint the trim.
Right.
Painting the trim makes it look so fresh, it makes it look like a new house. A trick that I do often, and a place where people overlook, is your banister and your staircase. And if you do have a 2-story house, often they're covered with carpet because that's what they did in the 70s and 80s. And if you have decent wood there, you can expose that. If you have stairs that look not terrific, you can do a neutral stair runner, and that makes a difference in the way the stairs look. Also, a lot of houses, even 10, 15 years ago, everything was stained. So you came down the stairs, they had the veloute on the end, they used oak, and it was all stained sort of a golden color. And that's just very dated for the time period. So often I will break that up by just painting the spindles the same shade that you picked to be the trim paint in the space. So just the spindles being white, the treads will stay the color they are, the risers are white, and the stringers are white. And that always looks better on camera
Yes.
because there's depth perception of your stairs. So that's something that you can do. Now there's a new thing that they're doing. I did it once or twice, but I'm still sort of feeling my way along. And as realtors, I'm curious to see what you think about it. Sometimes when you have a banister, it's just not great wood. It's builder's grade, it's oak, it's not attractive. I have in certain houses started painting actually the banister, either a black or a dark charcoal gray. Thoughts on that?
I do like.
You like it?
I like that look.
Yeah.
Yes.
About 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say forget it. Now I see how much crisper
Yeah.
it looks.
Yeah, and a dark color works.
Right. If you have really good wood, if you have cherry or you have but when you don't have good wood, stain is not going to help that.
That's true.
So I did one recently. We had pale gray walls, white trim, and I just painted the banister black. Boy, did that look good.
That's nice.
And
Sometimes if you do the risers along with it,
Sure.
it really brings it together. It looks good.
And I think the buzzword that we're all using is transitional. That we still want to respect the architecture of whatever we're working on, but we want it to be just a little bit more updated. I think people are looking for that. I've been very busy lately because people with the traditional homes, such as my own home, we did it 2005, 2008, and it was so traditional in our area. Now it's so modern. You go into the stores and you're like, I don't recognize my house. I feel like that I have to transition a little bit to something that's more modern. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Do small things like change out paint colors or the whiter trim. Take that linen trim away and go with the super white trim.
Right, because when people come through your home,
Sure.
they start adding up what it's going to cost to replace things,
Should
and
do all
change
those
things.
things. Sure.
So if you're able to do a lot of that updating, you can kind of eliminate that and make your house more appealing.
We're coming down to our last minute. I want to talk to each of you about anything for our homeowners to do above all to make their house as wonderful as possible. I'm going to start with Dottie.
Well, I think declutter is the main thing.
Declutter.
Things off the walls.
Sure.
Off the
Depersonalize.
countertops, depersonalize.
No wedding picture on the
No
wedding picture on
no
the wall.
grandchildren. Put everything away.
Away.
People want to go in and visualize the home as their
And
own.
don't you think people are starting to pack anyway?
Yes, they
Put
are.
it away.
Yes.
John, in our last 20 seconds, tell us anything
Yes,
that they could do.
I tell my clients the same thing. Make believe like it's a model home.
Sure.
I have them go look at a model home and see how it's staged to show them what they need to do. Declutter, clean, make sure it's clean. There's nothing worse than opening a shower and seeing mold. Make sure your house is clean.
Thank you both for being a guest on
Thank
Modern
you.
Design
for
for the
having us.
Times. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.